I wanted to ask Mr. Ragsdale. It was interesting listening to the description of the two microgrids that you have chosen to highlight. They're at the Butler Farm, swine waste, not anything we know about in Alaska, but you know, it's just a reminder to us that we all have different assets wherever we are. And in Alaska, you might have a river that's just right, or you might have a little geothermal, or you might have just enough wind, or you might have a lot of hogs. And so how we look around us to figure out what it is that we have that we can use. And you might not think that it is useful. And this is where I love the fact that when we think about carbon now, instead of thinking about different places where we can stuff it under the ground in a big enough hole, we're talking about management, we're talking about utilization, we're talking about creating value out of something that has been viewed as a negative. And so I wanted to ask you about what more we can be doing to help with our regional co-ops and our rural co-ops. I think they face their own set of challenges. They're smaller, oftentimes trying to find bring that level of innovation to scale that works out there can be a challenge. And so I guess first question to you is whether or not your member co-ops received any initial assistance from DOE, if they've been helpful to you in the project development process, and what kinds of technical support could be utilized to better assist our smaller rural co-ops in deploying these microgrids. Because as good as it is to be part of the bigger system, when you're on a little barrier island out there, or when you have natural disasters coming your way, the ability to be resilient out there is something that we're all looking to with a great deal of interest. So can you tell us how DOE can be more helpful to our smaller co-ops?
Sure. Excuse me. Thank you for the question. And you spoke of partnerships earlier, and both of these microgrids have been successful because of the partnerships that we have. The co-ops in North Carolina as a whole, all 26 co-ops, agreed to fund these two microgrids because they provide value, but also because they're an opportunity for us to look to the future, to do research and development on innovative solutions and understand how they can work within our system. So they were self-financed, and I appreciate our board of directors and their forward vision on providing that financing and allowing us to work through that. But we took partners from Mr. Butler, who made the decision a few years ago to invest in swine waste biogas generation on his farm. He saw a need, and he had an opportunity, so he made an initial investment. We made an investment as well in the energy storage to make that a microgrid and to make it complete. So it's those various partnerships across the entities. You asked earlier about universities. We've partnered with our local universities in North Carolina. We have a great system, and they have been very valuable in helping us. We have some graduate students and professors that are working with us on taking technology and innovative ideas and applying them to our real-world examples and helping us improve them. As far as DOE funding, unfortunately, we have not received DOE funding for these yet. We've applied for a number of grants, and there's a lot of competition for the grants that's out there. A lot of people are interested, and I believe this S1183, the EASE Act, would help facilitate more funding going to co-ops who can apply that for their members. Because of our not-for-profit cooperative business model, we look at solutions that benefit our members at the end of the line. We can be nimble on those solutions when they pencil out, but the DOE funding certainly helps. We also have partnered with tax equity investors because we're not-for-profit. We receive no value from the tax credits for solar or storage for our direct investments, so we have to partner with other investors to help monetize that and help realize some of that value. So those combinations allowing us to be more effective would be great.
Let me ask further, and this is to Mr. Ragsdale, Mr. Vanderberg, and any of the others of you. we hear great ideas. We get individuals like you, Mr. Ragsdale, like you, Mr. Vandenberg, that are coming and telling us all this amazing stuff that is happening. We have West Virginia where you're getting critical elements, critical minerals out of coal ash, rare earths out of coal ash. So we hear about all this great stuff that is out there. But if you're the little village of Igiagik, or you're somewhere out in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and some of this good stuff that's going on could actually be made applicable to where you are, how do you even know who's doing what, and what you can learn from what is going on in Alaska or West Virginia or North Carolina? How do we facilitate the sharing of these good ideas? What's out there? I mean, is it just people like you, Mr. Vandenberg, that has Launch Alaska, where you say, hey, we're the repository of cool things? I mean, how do we do this?
Yeah, one thing that we haven't talked about a lot today is that in addition to the national lab system and the university system and the great work that's going on in the military, America also has this incredible innovation ecosystem where there are accelerators and incubators and startup studios and venture capitalists. And this in itself is a real jewel of the country. And I think when we go about looking for, part of our annual cycle is we go and we talk to utilities, we talk to communities, we talk to asset owners in the state and try to understand what their problems are, problems that they're facing right now that they need help with. And then we go out to these partners and ask for folks that have solutions that are ready to deploy today. We don't look at companies or projects that still have 4 or 5 years of kind of tech development on them. We want technologies that are ready to go, that need maybe their first deployment, that are tech validation in Alaska. And I think that is a great network. I also think some of the work that, as I think Mr. Hart had mentioned earlier, both universities and national labs can do a great job convening partners and holding summits. The National Lab Day that ACEP did in Fairbanks this last year was incredible, and we continue to have great relationships that were built there. I think a lot of our jobs, those of us who are sitting at the table, is about reaching out to our colleagues and spending a lot of the time on the phone with folks and asking for just having those conversations and reading, what's going on and keeping abreast of recent trends. We spend a lot of time on that. You're putting your finger on something that is a real challenge, and I think the DOE and the kind of federal government could keep helping to support those convening efforts that are happening in states and throughout the country.
Any other ideas?
Yeah, and I would further, there are a number of national organizations that do a real good job of spreading information. NRECA for the cooperatives, one of our principles is cooperation among cooperatives, and we've done these projects, and we've looked at the research, we've documented the use cases, we've put them through experiments, and we've written up white papers to share, and we've shared that among the cooperative community. We're hearing great things that are happening out in other parts of the country, and we're thinking, how can we emulate that as well? And so it's that communication, that sharing, that really provides the opportunity for us to learn in certain locations and apply those learnings throughout. We're doing the same thing in North Carolina. We've got 2 projects now. We have 5 or 6 projects in the pipeline in the state that we're going to continue to expand. We're going to get more complex. We're going to work with the universities on control. We're going to work on how do we optimize these assets. But it takes the communication of the lessons learned and then applying them and making them broader and broader.